Welcome to Talent Treasures. Joining me today is Alana Jardis Hentges, the Learning and Development Manager at University of Puget Sound. Thanks for joining us today, Alana.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about your number one Clifton Strengths talent theme, which is woo. And to give folks a little background on the Clifton Strengths is a personality or a profile that assesses 34 different talent themes and how those bubble up. And woo stands for winning others over. And so that's your number one strength according to the Clifton Strengths 34. And so a little definition of woo is you're drawn to strangers
Mhm.
and you don't shy away from starting up conversations like many people do. So I'm curious, what are some of the ways that's shown up for you just in your world?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And thank you for inviting me and thank you for giving me the opportunity to really think about my woo and think about how it plays out. I took some notes because I
Yeah.
talk a lot and I like
Uh-huh.
to sort of organize how I was thinking. So, how I was thinking about it showing up for me, and I came up with a couple of phrases. One
Yeah.
phrase is I notice and engage. And so, one of the things I think that happens with woo a lot of times is like if I'm sitting down on an airplane with someone, I just want to connect with them for a few minutes so that I feel comfortable with the person sitting next to me. And I think they're afraid I'm going to talk the whole flight. I have
Yeah.
no interest in talking the whole flight. I want to connect with them in a very genuine and human way, but for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need their whole life story, so I like to engage and I notice things about people, and
Yeah.
that is often how I start the engagement.
Yeah.
Um, I think another phrase I would think about is smile and nod. And
That's a
I
good
was
practical tip.
yeah. I was thinking back, we talk about talents as things that emerge when we're younger and then we can practice and hone them into strengths. And I think my woo came out when I was little because I was always the kid in a restaurant who's like poking over the booth, like waving to the people
That was
at
you.
the table behind me. My parents are like, stop, stop, don't bother them. But when I was in high school, I had an English teacher who pointed out to me, he said, Alana, I really love having you in the classroom because I look out and you're paying attention. And when you make eye contact with me, you smile. And
Mhm.
that matters to me as a teacher because, many teachers look out and they see a sea of disengaged faces. And so
Right.
that really stuck with me. And I go through the world in that kind of way. I
Hmm.
try to smile and nod when I'm in the crowd of a speaker. In
Hmm.
a way, I'm trying to make friends with them without even interacting with them, letting
Hmm.
them know that I'm there, I'm paying attention, I'm on their team. I want to be their
Hmm.
friend, right?
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I do that in walking. And so I think those are two phrases that really came out for me as I was
Oh,
thinking about how my woo shows up.
yeah, I love that. And you and I go back a year or two or more. And and that's something that's always impressed me about you too, is just that feeling. I mean, I feel so welcome, right? Because I came into a work group that you were established before I got there. And I think that was one of the things I remember most about you. I just felt so welcome right away. And I'm sure those very practical things you just described are part of that. Um, and so since that has been something you've noticed since you were young, how has that contributed, do you think, to your success over the years and all the accomplishments that you've had?
I think one thing that's really been important for me is I have received support and validation for how I
Mhm.
show up. And my supervisor now, one of the things I love is she lets me do the work in the way that gives me energy and allows me
Mhm.
to feel successful. So I've been in roles before where I was really stifled because I had a supervisor who would like show up at 8 o'clock, you do the work. And for me, when I'm walking into the office from my car, I might get in at 8:20 because I see three people and I stop
Mhm.
and I have a conversation or an impromptu meeting. And I am so effective in getting my work done in that kind of way that having the freedom and flexibility to do it in a way that gives me energy allows me to enjoy my job, but also allows me
Yeah.
really to be successful. And
Yeah.
so I think also for me, identifying a role that allows me to do that uh, has been helpful. I'm kind of in a
Yeah.
I'm in a middle of my career in terms of age, but new in my career in terms of role. And I
Hmm.
think the role that I have identified really allows me to lean into my woo and
Mm.
other strengths as well. But
Yeah, yeah. What have you find particularly about your current role that allows for that woo?
well, I think one thing I do is I host a lot of people.
Hmm.
So in the learning and development world, I bring in speakers. As you know, I have brought in you for sessions. I
Hmm.
like to welcome people, make sure they feel like they matter.
Hmm.
Um, and so I that is one of the things I really love. Also for the people attending the sessions, I genuinely thank them for being there. I listen
Yeah.
to what they want to take away. I listen to what do they need, what do they want. And another thing I was thinking about my happy place at work is I also oversee our recognition and appreciation programs.
Ah,
And those are big events. And my favorite thing to do at those events is to work them. I
yeah,
don't
I
want
bet.
to be a participant. I love greeting people. I love
Yeah.
talking to the speakers. I love thanking people for showing up, acknowledging that the catering team did a good job. I recently got some feedback that this person said we were figuring out why these events have so much meaning, and the reason is you. And I was
Ah,
thinking about that because that was
yeah.
so touching, but I think in a way it is because I work the events through
Yeah.
my woo. And I
Yes.
think it really makes people feel special. And
Yes.
so that is something I have really enjoyed and I think has really contributed to my success.
Oh, 100%. And you're kind of leaning into my next couple of questions, which I think we've kind of touched on a little bit, is like one, have people notice that? And you've already given me a couple examples. Your teacher back in grade junior high and your current colleagues. So people do
Mhm.
notice. If you think about that a little deeper, do you get other kind of feedback that that's a talent?
I do. I was thinking in my previous role, I was a co-director of an office.
Hmm.
And my partner director would always say, like, Alana, you're the out front person. I'm the behind the scenes person. So
Hmm.
whenever we would go to events, I would be the one working the room, greeting people, saying hello, introducing her to people.
Hmm.
Whenever we needed to speak or do a presentation, I was kind of the main character and she was the
Hmm.
supporting character because of my comfort with
Right.
people and having those initial kind of warm up conversations with
Yeah.
folks. Hmm.
Yeah. You're not intimidated by that. Yeah.
No, they're
Not at
fun.
all.
I love finding connections. That is, I
Yes.
think that's where my woo really shines.
Yes. Well, and again, one of my questions is, do those tendencies tend to motivate others? And again, you've already given me a couple examples, but if you think about that a little deeper, like how has your woo helped motivate other people?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I would say it may help motivate people because one of the things that maybe it's my unique brand of woo, or maybe it's how woo comes across, is validation is so
Hmm.
important to me. And so I think it motivates other people because very often I am validating and saying, thank you for doing this. I recognize this is really hard. I hear what you're saying. That is fair. I
Hmm.
understand. And how do we, how can we do something
Hmm.
next in
Yeah.
that? And so I think it allows people to feel seen and heard
Hmm.
in a really really in a genuine way. I really truly
Yes.
want to know. When I ask someone how their day is, I don't want to like, oh, fine, and move on. I want to know how their
Right.
day is, and I will share
Right.
with them what's happening in my life. Um, and
Right.
so I think that that helps people feel seen.
Yes. Oh gosh. And Alana, that just makes me think about in this day and age, my thought is that more probably 90% of people feel unseen and unheard and
Yeah.
are just desperate for some level of recognition. So I can see how you would provide such a valuable, just vital, life-bringing thing to a lot of people that I think are need it,
Thank you.
right?
I
Yeah.
I try because
Hmm.
I know what it's like not to be seen and heard
Yeah,
or dismissed. I
right.
think one of the things with woo that there can be a barrier label that someone is
Hmm.
maybe unprofessional. And I think
Hmm.
that's something that really showed up for me early in my career is, I'd have personal conversations or chit chat with people in a way of trying to make connection and was really given a lot of feedback. It's like
Hmm.
you can't talk about your personal life in a public setting or with other people because that is not professional. And so it really zapped my confidence for a long time. And
Hmm.
so it's as I've moved into this new space of being an older, more mature person and more kind of willing to just be who I am, but also
Yeah.
having people and supervisors in my life who have supported that. I I really see it as my responsibility is also one of my top five. So
It
I really see
is.
it as
It
one of
is.
my responsibilities to make sure that we are creating spaces for people to feel comfortable and confident in who they are.
Yes. Well, and you just highlighted a really interesting challenge, I think, that a lot of managers face is, yeah, what is that dividing line between personal and professional? Because we don't want to be so cold that we don't ever talk about our personal lives with the people that we work with 8, 10 hours a
Right,
day. So
right.
how have you managed to walk that balance beam?
I think for me, it's been a lot of self-awareness and
Hmm.
thinking about, I show up as a whole person and I expect the people around me to show up as whole people. And
Right.
so I want to acknowledge and honor that. And at the same time, we have a job to get done. And
Right.
so I will always start my day. I wander into every office of anybody who's there. I say hello.
Hmm.
I check in. It probably takes me 15, 20 minutes. I do the same thing at the end of the day. I check out
Mm,
with
awesome.
people. And it's funny because always if people leave and they didn't say goodbye, I'm like, why don't you say goodbye? Because it's such a priority of
That
mine. And
connection.
so I think I have started really kind of containing myself with the
Hmm.
check-in and the check-outs, and then of course human interaction throughout the day. But
Right.
that's given me a bit of a frame
Right.
around
Right.
it.
Yeah. Well, and I almost think of you're like the glue a little bit that's kind of holding all these pieces together with
Maybe.
all those check-ins. Well, and one feature of the talent themes is that we tend to get energy from them, right? Not only are we have a kind of a affinity for them and a level of competence that comes naturally, but it also brings us a certain level of energy. So
Mhm.
how does that just energize you? What are you getting out of all that?
I love people.
Hmm.
An extrovert. And so I
Hmm.
think it really helps for me to have space and to work in a place where there are always people to talk to interact with. And so I get energy from other people, but I get energy from other people's ideas and
Mm.
their input because it gives me something to latch onto as I
Hmm.
think about the work that I do. Uh,
Yeah.
every opportunity I have to connect with someone, whether they're sharing something in their personal life or their professional life, or just something they've noticed about our campus environment, gives me information that I can then use in my role as learning and development manager to bring better programs, services, and resources to the people
Yes.
at the University of Puget Sound. And it
Yeah.
allows me to be creative, which is something that I really thrive in a creative
Hmm.
environment. And so
Hmm.
I think the people connection fuels the creativity.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And one of the things that's kind of fun to do with these talent themes is there's a lot of themes that have some similarities and then some themes that are very contrasting. And
Hmm.
actually, I was looking at your results before our call, and just as a reminder, your top five, you've got an interesting constellation with Woo being your number one,
Hmm.
positivity being number two, which I think, wow, what a superpower of two really just, winning combination. Then number three is adaptability. You're very comfortable with like change and having to adapt. And it's not high on my list. So I appreciate people who can do that. And then number four is communication. And yeah, and so you have several what they call influencing themes in your top five. But as you think about that constellation of talent themes, how have you seen them work together? for yourself?
Yeah, I was looking at my notes because one of the things I wrote down about the smile and nod, that approach is really,
Yeah.
I think that is where a lot of my positivity comes in. I
Yeah.
think a lot of my validation is usually through a pretty positive lens.
Yeah.
The adaptability is a really interesting one for me because of the woo and because I'm always getting input
Yeah.
from people, I can bounce around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a strength, but at some point, we talk about with the strengths, how do you have people in your life who can really help you? My
Right.
supervisor will say to me, like, Alana, these are all amazing ideas, but we got to pin something down.
Yeah.
So it's time. And so that's really when my adaptability kind of moves aside and my
Mhm.
responsibility comes in. I
Yeah.
pin it down and then I am committed to making something happen. And
Yeah.
so they do really work together and communication, of course, throughout all
Hmm.
of them. Uh,
Right.
Written, oral,
Yeah.
prepared, impromptu, all sorts of communication is really, for me, the connecting piece,
Yeah.
and the human connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then if we think about those contrasting, so one of the themes that contrasts with woo is called relator. And
Hmm.
it's similar, like, we hear the introversion, extroversion scale. There's a little similarities, but it's not quite measuring in the way the Myers-Briggs would. But
Right.
so I'm going to give you two statements about each and see how you react to it.
Hmm.
So folks with woo say, I can build a broad social network. And folks with relator say, I can build a deep social network. So how does that land for you?
I would say for me, the broad social network is very accurate.
Hmm.
And it comes back to me thinking, I want to just take a few minutes of somebody's time to connect with them. But it is in a very genuine, authentic, human way. I want to connect with lots of people throughout my day and throughout my life. Now, of course, I have deep relationships with people too, but my preference is to kind of move around to work a room,
Hmm.
to talk to different people versus to sit at a table and talk to one person for a
Hmm.
whole night if
Hmm.
I was going to an event, for
Hmm.
example.
Right. And it was interesting, even when you gave your first example of getting on the plane, how you don't necessarily need to talk to the person the whole time, just to make that initial connection is what
Yep.
fuels you. So
Yep.
it's fascinating. Well, and of course, and you alluded to this earlier as well, the fact that our talent themes are neutral, right? They're neither good nor bad in and of themselves. It's just a way for us to better understand how we're
Mhm.
wired. And so our talent themes can fuel great success. They can sometimes get in our way as a barrier. And so, meaning if we're overusing it or misapplying it somehow. And so you touched on that too earlier, but any ways that you found the woo gets in your way?
Yeah, I think if I could spend all day every day just talking to people, I would. I I
Yeah.
just love it. I
Yeah.
maybe should have been an interviewer in my career.
There
But
you go.
the work that I do, I can't just talk to people every day, all
Right.
day. And I find that sometimes if I am overusing or misapplying my woo by,
Mhm.
speaking more with people rather than focusing on the bulk of the work, it really
Right.
creates stress for me and stress for other people because I still have to get my jobs and tasks accomplished in
Right.
a given day or week. So I think that that is something I run into trouble with sometimes
Yeah.
is I love talking to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Which means you and I need to go do lunch one of these days.
Yeah,
We're overdue.
for
So,
sure, for sure.
so you can use your woo and I can use my relator. We can,
Perfect.
um, well, what is there any maybe words of encouragement or advice that you might have for other people that are learning more about their woo talent and
Yeah, I would say lean into it. Woo is about people and it's about connection. It's about authenticity. And so the part I really lean in and encourage other people to lean into is think about how that can give them energy, how it can help them advance their work, advance their sense of purpose. Because I have just found as I have leaned into it and been less ashamed about my need to talk to people, it has actually allowed me to be more effective more relational, more human in my approach. And I think, we talked earlier about the sort of the state of the world and people feeling a need to be seen and heard. I do think
Mhm.
woo is really a superpower in that
Yes.
because it is a way for us to see and recognize a lot of people
Hmm.
in a given day in a really human kind of way. And so I really think it can go a long way to creating a sense of belonging in our communities and
Yes.
at our work environments.
Oh, absolutely. And I felt a little sad when you said like maybe feeling ashamed of it in the past or uncomfortable with it in the past. And I think that's true of a lot of people as well when they really start digging into whatever their top strength is, right?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to look at, gee, what are the factors in my talents that are getting in my way or causing me trouble? And that's what we zero in on. And
Yeah.
really, this you just nailed it, Alana. It's about really embracing what we're good at and capitalizing on that, maximizing it, and using it for the good of others. So I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times, when I think back, it was people looking through their lens and their filter at
Hmm.
the way I was doing my work. So as I have learned more about who I am and how I operate and been able to advocate for myself or to make a case for I want to do this project. I want to do it. I wouldn't use these exact words through the lens of
Hmm.
my woo, but I
Right.
would map it out. I'm going to meet with the stakeholders. I'm going to do this. And it's all through the filter of my woo. It has allowed me to be effective in the way that is comfortable for me, but also to bring other people along who may not understand how woo works.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So wonderful words to leave us on. Alana, thank you so much for making time again today and
Happy to.
have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Nancy.
Thank you.